see how this works now. It took me a minute.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Get one more picture.
I'll bang it out as soon as I help the journalists do their jobs.
Yeah, we
and
just
I'll
asked
do
the
the
first two questions from the register, which...
I love the Des Moines Register.
How's it going, Andrew?
I love you all too.
My first question for you is, with your freedom dividend, $1,000 a month goes different ways in different places. Even in Iowa, $1,000 a month could go further in a small town like Winterset compared to bigger towns in Iowa like Iowa City and Des Moines. What are your thoughts on that, with $1,000 going different distances in different places?
Oh, no. I think it's going to help balance out our economy, because right now $1,000 does go further in some parts of the country than others, but that's going to help people move in both directions. So if you're living in a high-cost part of Iowa and you want to have a bigger space, then you can move someplace a little bit outside of Des Moines. And then if you want to move from a rural area into Des Moines, then it's more feasible as well. But the administration of trying to follow people around and say you live here, you live there, and then changing the amount of money just would be unfeasible. And so it's much simpler and more straightforward and fair and universally popular if everyone gets the same amount.
For sure. One more for you. You just made the September debates. What's your strategy going in? Are you going to keep it kind of the same, coming back to the UBI, or what's your move?
So we raised over $1 million in the 2.5 days after the debates in Detroit. Hundreds of thousands of people. The vast majority of the money came from new donors. So we're just going to keep making our case to the American people that we need solutions, not sound bites, and that we can do much, much better for ourselves.
Thank you.
Mr. Yang,
Hello.
You are a political outsider. Back in Washington, lots of people are trying to figure out how to move forward on the issue of gun safety, gun control. What would you do differently? This issue has been so elusive to lawmakers in the past.
On this one, the legislation's out of sync with the will of the American people. If you look at the polls, the vast majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle favor common sense gun legislation around universal background checks, red flag laws for sure, and then most support an automatic weapons ban. So in this case, it really is the NRA and lobbyists just blocking the will of the American people. But I'm happy to say I feel like momentum is growing and we're going to be able to change that. Can you go this way, Andrew? Sure, I'll shuffle around.
You talked about making the debate regulations. Do you think that the new rules, the rules for DNC, are fair?
What I love about the rules is that they're transparent, everyone can see what they are, and then we all have to hit certain benchmarks. And so, to me, obviously I'm a little bit biased because we just made the debates, so I think the rules are great. But anyone who's complaining about the rules, they've been out there for all of us to see for months.
Mr. Yang, how critical is it, you think, to be in that third debate with fewer people on the stage, the chance to get more people to read your message?
So again, we raised over $1 million in the days after the last debate, and that was with less airtime than other candidates. So if you do the math, if we get twice as much airtime, we're going to raise twice as much money. So the hope is that this next debate, I believe the DNC is very likely to break it up into 2 nights, and so instead of 10 candidates on stage, it might be only 5 or 6, and that would be ideal for us.
Mr. Yang, does $1,000 a month go to people in the country illegally as well?
It goes to citizens, and so it would not go to undocumented immigrants, but I am for a long-term path to citizenship for people who are here in this country and want to become citizens over time.
What about people with permanent status?
So again, the freedom dividend only goes to citizens, but hopefully it would be an incentive for some people to adopt citizenship, particularly if they're here permanently, because then we'd be getting taxes from them. I mean, permanent residents already pay taxes, but it would be an incentive for them to become full citizens.
What would you do about trade, expanding trade? Obviously, a lot of industries in this state are
So I certainly think the tariffs were the wrong way to go, and if you talk to farmers here in Iowa, they feel turned on by President Trump. Many of them voted for Donald Trump, and then they've seen their businesses suffer as a result. Globalization and trade are like other things in our society where we've been selling it to everyone as a win, and then there have been discrete winners and losers. So if we're going to pursue trade agreements, we have to make sure and take care of the people that are actually not going to be part of the benefits. And right now what we've said is we're going to have retraining programs for you sometimes, and the truth is Americans know those retraining programs generally do not work very well. So if we're going to have trade deals, we need to push the economic benefits more quickly and broadly. And the first step would be a dividend of $1,000 a month for every American, because then everyone would feel like they're sharing in our progress.
Mr. Yang, if you could, as you said in your introduction, technology is actually
contributing to job losses more than migrants crossing the border or migrants flying into our country. Why do you think migrants are being scapegoated right now?
I think it's much easier for politicians to scapegoat people than a system or machines or technology. Because if you point to other humans and say it's their fault, then people will say like, okay, that could make sense. That's just an easier story, and we have to make sure that Americans know that the easy story is not the right story. The right story is that our economy is being transformed, particularly by technology, and by the numbers of the 5 million manufacturing jobs that were lost over the last number of years, 80% were due to technology and automation, which is the vast, vast majority.
But how will you convince the American people when the president is giving out a different narrative?
By beating Donald Trump at the ballot box in 2020, and then everyone will have the correct story in mind.
Talking to the voter, what qualifications, what do you tell them, how are you going to beat Trump?
The opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math, and the pendulum's going to swing this way. I'm laser focused on solving the problems that got Donald Trump elected, and voters sense that. Voters also sense that I'm not of the Washington, D.C. system, that I'm not beholden to any corporate donors or lobbyists, that I'm just going to go in and do the right thing for the American people.
Why no serious talk about campaign finance reform from you or other Democratic candidates?
I love this question so much. If you go to my website, yang2020.com, you will see half a dozen fundamental campaign finance reform and democratic reform proposals, like ranked choice voting, 100 democracy dollars for every American so we can wash out the lobbyist cash, 12-year term limits for members of Congress. I mean, we all can see what's happening in Washington, D.C., where it's become completely disconnected from the needs of the American people. It's one reason why Donald Trump won. And so I could not agree with you more that we need to be talking more about not just getting money out of politics, but also putting money into our hands and make it so our legislators actually represent us. Because if you were a congressperson today, what does your day consist of really? It consists of a lot of dialing for dollars, a lot of fundraising calls, the occasional media appearances, meeting with your own party. And so what are your incentives? Are your incentives really to listen to your constituents back home? Unfortunately, it gets weaker and weaker. So what we have to do is we have to put the money back into our hands and say, look, you have to listen to us, and if you get 10,000 Americans behind you and they give you these 100 democracy dollars that we're going to give them just that they can give to candidates and campaigns, then that's $1 million. And then when the lobbyist comes and says, here's $50,000, you can say, I don't need your $50,000, I'm getting money from the people. Ranked choice voting would help. There are so many things we need to do in our democratic system. I also think we need to move towards 18-year term limits for Supreme Court justices. We have lifetime appointments from the early days when people did not live as long. And back then, people actually stepped down from the Supreme Court for any of a number of reasons. It was not something where they stayed until they were at death's door. And now we're at a point where, unfortunately, people are hyperventilating about the health of 85-year-old Supreme Court justices. That's not the way a modern society should operate. We have to be able to see that the rules are not working and then make them work better for us, because we are the owners and shareholders of this country.
Not worthy of the stump speech? Stump speech?
I'm sorry?
Maybe it should be on the stump speech.
I like your suggestion, sir.
To that end, is there a problem with how much time all candidates have had to spend just on getting donors to reach the debate thresholds?
So one thing I love about the Yang Gang, our average donation is only $26, so my fans are even cheaper than Bernie's. No one thought it could be done, but we did it. We found the people who are cheaper than Bernie's. But we've got a whole lot of them, so we've raised millions of dollars from small donors. And so if you're not getting money from small donors, to me, you should be looking at why your message is not striking a chord.
Mr. Yang, when you talk to Iowans, a lot of people were telling me at least that one of the reasons why they're sticking with Trump is because they're worried about this left-leaning push in the Democratic Party, specifically citing the members of Congress that the president attacked. What is your stance on that? Are you worried at all that kind of these attacks are working?
If you look, I am one of only 2 candidates in the Democratic field that double-digit percentages of Trump voters say they would vote for. It's me and Bernie. And so one of the reasons why I am such a powerful candidate is that I'm drawing in thousands of disaffected Trump voters, conservatives, independents, libertarians, as well as Democrats and progressives. And I'm focused on solving many of the same problems that Trump called out. It's just that his solutions were not what we need. What did he say? We're going to bring the old jobs back. We're going to build a wall. We're going to turn back the clock. I'm saying we have to turn the clock forward. But already many people who voted for Donald Trump are being attracted to our campaign for this reason.
Mr. Yang, Some Democratic candidates have called Trump a white supremacist. Others have said that they're not going that far. Where do you stand, and does it matter? Do Democrats need to be calling him?
I think that we should judge everyone by their words and actions, and in this case, Donald Trump's words and actions indicate that he does have those beliefs, and so we have to call him out on that.
So is that a yes? He is a white supremacist?
Based on his words and actions, yes, he is a white supremacist.
On climate change, you've said that among your policies, maybe some areas of the country should not be insurable if they are disaster prone. What do you say to Iowa farmers who lost their farms in massive flooding that might likely happen again in the future?
So people who are being displaced or having their lives and communities destroyed by climate change, we need to take care of them. That's why we have congressional funds to help manage disasters after the fact. But then we also have to start getting smarter about where we build and develop. And there are certain parts of the country that you can say, look, over time, it might be wiser not to invest billions of dollars in new development in this particular community or region. Like, because let's say it's close to a coastline, or it's an area that's likely to become hit by storms repeatedly over time. We have to start becoming more cognizant of climate change's dramatic effects on our way of life, and that includes mitigating climate change in many ways, but also includes trying to make our development smarter.
Last question, guys. On those coastal river towns, that is that to say that they should be getting up and relocating because they're in a place where there's likely to have flooding?
Well, it's unrealistic to say, hey, like Americans should move wholesale in big ways. And my comment at the debate was that we need to help put money into Americans' hands so they can move to higher ground. If you think about disasters like Hurricane Katrina, who suffered the most? It was poor people who didn't even have a vehicle they could get into to drive to higher ground. So by putting economic resources into our hands, we enable ourselves and our families to be able to address some of the worst disasters. And over time, the goal is to try and help us manage this transition, because the transition is real. We can see it around us. The last 4 years have been the 4 warmest years in recorded history. People are dying of heat waves in other parts of the world and here in the US. I mean, we have to get our heads out of the sand and say, look, this is real, and become much more proactive at combating climate change in a whole range of ways. And so some of the things we should be doing is we should be planning, we should be reforesting certain parts of our country, because that's actually going to really help with carbon capture. There are a lot of things that we can do, but we have to be proactive. We can't just say, look, if we do less emitting, that it's going to reverse itself, because it will not.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Got to take it. This way, bud.
For every dollar that we invest in global health, we get about $20 in return.
Not a return,
The U.S.
just saying
hasn't
that.
increased
I totally agree.
Yeah. So would you commit to doubling funding for AIDS, TB, and malaria?
I'm a fan of increasing global aid.
Thank you guys.
I hope it wasn't a box.
Oh, wow, flat.
Thank y'all.
I forgot. Mr. Yang. I forgot.
Keep walking, buddy. Well, the field's about to shrink a lot, and they should dig into each candidate and figure out who they think is the best vision
guys,
to
gotta
help
take
the
'em.
country. In the
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dude, what's your favorite post so much, sir?
We have a signature.
Sure, what do you got?
And you'll already walk in a second.
Thank you. Keep the one up top.
Thank you so much, sir. Good luck, brother. Where are we taking you then? That's a bad signature. I'm sorry about that.
Can I get one in black?
Can you use your black Sharpie?
Thank you, sure. Can I get a quick selfie?
Sure.
Sorry, you gotta stay over there.
Gotta keep moving.
Thank you guys. Andrew, can I get a quick selfie? Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Can we have a selfie with you?
Guys, you got a phone? Yeah, we'll do it.
Thank you. Sure, hop in.
All right.
You guys are a bit older than my boys.
I don't have everybody. Wait. There goes Sean.
Okay, you're gonna get mom to it.
You did it!
Can I get one with you?
Gotta move, guys. I'm sorry. Thank you. We love y'all. Love the people. We gotta move. Sorry.
I steal? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Yang, quick question. So you support $1,000 for every American and reparations for African Americans. Can I have my money now?
All right.
I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it.
How will that payout go? I'm curious.
In everyone's bank account, first of the month.
In everybody's bank account at the first of the month.
Thank you, man.
Okay. So now, how would that work with the government?
Thank you, man. All right, we're good.
Thank you very much.
We love
Appreciate
y'all.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Oh, there he is.
Hey guys, where are we heading?
Follow Ethan right in front of you. Up the stairs.
Mr. Yang, can I get a picture? Oh, thank you so much. This
There
is
you
my
go.
dad right here.
Thanks, guys.
Whatever, my mic.
Gotta go.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andrew. One last selfie, please.
All right, thank you. Gotta go. Thanks again. Gotta move them. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Thank you.
How's the lemonade? The signatures are getting paid.
Love the lemonade.
My student from California, Sarah.
Thank you.
From Santiago.
Thank you.
Mr. Yang, I've seen a number of Asian Americans.
Wow, just growing. Okay.
Andrew, did you get your turkey leg?
Not yet.
I'm working on it.
Follow Ethan. Follow Ethan. Ethan's your hawk. Scout Harold. I'll call it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Excuse us all. We're gonna
Represent
Mr. Yang.
minorities who for a long time haven't always had a place.
I'm very proud to be such a
Ethan,
where we going?
They inspire me.
Here's right here. Sorry, we're
Sorry, PBS over here. Hi. Good to see you again. Good to see you too.
Oh, we're here. Sorry, I walked by.
Hey. Take a picture. He's trying to get through this. We're trying to go past camera.
Yeah, we're going back. She's going back.
You guys are.
Yeah, just gotta.
There
There we go.
Andrew. You're going right there. Right.
Over here. Either way you want to go. Whichever.
All right, I'll put my stuff down. Okay, Andrew, in your way. Yeah. Rich Baltimore friend.
All right. Right here. Everybody move.
My last photo. First family right there.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Doing well. You having a good time here? This is actually my second.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed. It's my first one.
No, don't worry about it. There's no reason anyone would know.
Where were you here the first time?
I was here last year when it was me, Tom Steyer, and a couple of other people. So the field is very different.
That's
I don't know
right.
what that is.
That's right. You announced early and that was good.
Yes. So I have to say, I feel really good being back because it's so much more hopping this year. I mean, the soapbox is a bigger deal. I'm obviously much more well known in the public eye, whereas last time it was frankly a little bit awkward.
Do you feel like it's interesting? Did it felt different a little bit now that you've been on the trail for a while? Do you feel like you got different muscles now? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything's a journey. So if I was the same person I was a year ago, then I must be doing
I feel
something.
the same way. I think I'm not the same person I was yesterday after that I was there. Yeah, actually. I'm living a lot. I'm hearing somebody else.
I got you.
Yeah, there's another mic on me. I don't know if there's like
Oh yeah. Do we need to?
Can we just turn it off now? They might hurt.
Yeah. Do you guys know who else? Do you guys have it mic'd up? Oh, okay, cool. Just for a second. There's somebody's second mic on you. Okay, good. Speaking of robots. There's a robotic aspect.
No problem, no
to
problem.
the amount of audio equipment on you right now.
Yep.
Just take it out.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
We're overdue. Just take this off anyway. So.
All right.
Thanks, I'm sorry. Of course.
All right. Matt. Yeah, we're almost ready. Is this young guy?
Who loves PBS? I love PBS.
Woo! Yeah. Thank you. Iowa Public Television, everybody.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. It's fine. Okay, good. All right. Make sure everybody's ready. Okay, good. I'm gonna do a clap stick our old-fashioned technology, right?
You got it.
All right. I guess that is my first question. How does this feel being here?
It feels great to be back. I was here a year ago, and the campaign has grown so much since then. And also this year, it's closer to the real action in 2020, so there's a lot more excitement.
How do you break out?
Well, after the last debate, we raised over $1 million from small donors in just the next 2 or 3 days. And we just made the debate stage in the fall when the field's going to shrink a lot. So the way we break out is by just keep hammering the message to the American people that we need solutions, not sound bites, and that it's not their imagination. They can see their neighborhoods and communities being transformed around them, and we need to have a real move towards an economy that works for everyone.
There are a lot of reporters who sort of are looking at this field and depict it as progressive change people versus sort of establishment, known quantity people. Where do you think you fit in on that? I know you kind of have ideas that seem to run both gamuts, but how do you see this field breaking down, and where are you?
You know, I think that the dichotomies that the media tries to draw are often unhelpful, like the entire progressive or establishment or socialist capitalist. I mean, the truth is a lot of these frameworks don't really apply to what we're going through right now. It's not like when someone dreamed up some of these labels, they knew that trucks would start driving themselves or artificial intelligence could come that could do the work of hundreds of thousands at zero marginal cost. So we need to just be focused on actually trying to solve the real problems of this time, and to me that doesn't fall neatly into any ideological category.
That's why we're at PBS. We like to talk about things more broadly.
Yeah.
There's a big conversation about race right now. I know you've been a part of that and you've been well aware of it. Like yesterday, Elizabeth Warren said the president is a white supremacist. What do you make of that? Do you agree with that?
You know, I think we should just judge people by their words and actions, and unfortunately the president, his words and actions have led many Americans to conclude that he's a white supremacist, and so if he wants to change that, then he needs to both speak and act very differently. Fantastic, thank you.
Good.
Good?
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I'm
We're
going to
going.
you.
Hey, Ethan, where'd you go? All right, where we are.
You need these fine people that you already talked to. And I actually want to make sure I caught a line of yours. You say we are run by the almighty dollar? What's the line?
This country revolves around
the almighty dollar. And then you're like, so I'm going to give you more dollars? Is that it?
Yeah,
I'm sure I got that right. Okay, cool.
That is the line.
That's cool. I mean,
Yes,
It is true. We do run on the almighty dollar. It's terrible.
How high do you think you need to place in
you know,
yeah, of course.
I mean, there's so much time between now and then.
Okay.
But we're growing now all the time. I mean, you saw like our qualifying poll was here, and we'd never gotten into like that range here in Iowa, so we were thrilled.
GQ real quick.
Sure. What's that?
And then we're gonna do a photo with Rich's friend, Rich Baltimore.
Yeah.
They're from.
Hey man. Hey. Are you? This is a beautiful family.
I have some students.
Yeah, it's great. All right, who's going to take a shot of us?
Do you have the contact for the next one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What brings you guys to town? You guys here?
Start.
1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Where are we going?
How long of a drive is that? I've actually made that drive. 4 hours. It's not that bad.
You follow me.
Plus, you guys get to come to a giant fair, right?
Yes, and eat turkey legs.
Turkey legs. Turkey legs.
Fried butter.
Deep fried butter.
I gotta take him. I'm sorry.
I know. We'll see you. It's so great to see you again. Yeah. I was literally just texting with Mana just yesterday.
Oh no.
Listen to your parents. They love you and know best.
No best for our future.
Everyone wants to selfie. Thank you very much.
Want a photo as well?
There we go.
We gonna go. Mr. Yang, can we get one as well? Sure. Do you think you could say it's our fraternity?
Sure, I can do that.
Yes. Once I start
Rush TDX. That's what Andrew Yang says.
Thank you. Let's go.
Thanks. Hi there. How are you?
Hannah, look at Grandma. Oh, now you're gonna look. Okay.
You look way too young to be a grandma.
And that's how it works at the Iowa State Fair as Andrew Yang continues to work the crowd and eating some of the traditional food at the State Fair, including corn dogs and turkey legs, as well as fried Oreos. Just some of the foods available at the Iowa State Fair, which continues for the next week and a half. This is day 2 of